back to BLOCKTV. It's time now for Chain Breakers. Now, the crypto data space is at a critical juncture, with government regulators citing lack of transparency and clear data as critical to their inability to properly regulate the space. And numerous private actors accusing the space of being run by rampant manipulation. So, in order to keep on top of the market and find out what the latest trends are, we turn to the experts over at Coingecko, and I speak now with co-founder Bobby Ong. And full disclosure, Coingecko has a content partnership with BLOCKTV. Bobby, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, so to kick off our discussion this week, there's been dramatic news coming out of a small altcoin, a little-known altcoin out there in the network, Matic Network, which had a price drop after climbing over 180% over 2 weeks, had a price drop on Tuesday of over 70%. On the back of some interesting news. Now, Bobby, what do you make of this sudden price drop and what it means for this particular coin?
Yeah, I mean, the price drop has been incredible. Basically, in the past, the price fell down 70% within a 30 minutes period, and you basically wipe out all the gains that Matic Network made in the last 2 weeks. So the price went from about 0.014 cent, and it reached a peak of about 0.042, and then it suddenly had a massive dump within a 30 minutes period. I mean, a lot of people are saying this was started by some FUD tweet by Samuel Gosling. So he claimed that 1.5 billion Matic tokens, or about 15% of the supply, was sent out of the foundation, and it seems to have been transferred to Binance to be liquidated. However, he clarified later on that it's actually not 15%, but only 3% of Matic tokens that have been transferred. That has seemed to actually made the FUD and caused a price dump. That being said, it's actually pretty hard to say because the tweet came out a couple hours after the dump, so it's pretty hard to say. CZ of Binance actually came out and tweeted that the Matic team had nothing to do with it. They did not dump their tokens. And I guess it's a part of things where you can say that Matic had margin on Binance where you can actually get 0.02% daily interest and trade with high leverage there. And when there's a price decrease, this caused a lot of traders to hit stop losses and liquidations, and then this cascade downwards and then price went down. It's a bit hard to say. To be honest, it feels a bit not organic, this dump. So it's really hard to say. And it not just happened for Matic, a bunch of other Binance IEO launchpad coins as well. You can see the similar trend for Kava, Elrond, Harmony. So people are wondering if this is the end of the IEO as we know it.
Certainly. I mean, it's interesting to note as well, given the massive climb that Matic saw in the weeks leading up to this fall, which seemed to buck market trends. Generally, the fact that it was moving counter market, and I mean, again, the relatively low liquidity in the coin as a whole, there does seem to be some element of manipulation going on there, whether it just be due to small liquidity and certain traders taking advantage, or from the Matic team themselves. Do you give any credence to that idea? Do you think there's something a little more going on here, given the bizarre movements that the coin has seen?
I tend to believe there's something going on at the back, but we don't really know for sure. No one's going to come up and say that they are behind the manipulation and all. But it does seem pretty bizarre. The move doesn't seem very natural. First, the increase in price, which was a very high increase. It was 350% in the past 2 weeks, and then everything was lost within a period of half an hour. Matic team has come out and claimed that they are not the ones that are behind the scenes manipulating it. Binance seems to agree with it. Again, we don't know for sure. Maybe it's got to do with some of the whales or some market makers that are market making Binance IEO tokens, or maybe there was a glitch. It's really hard to say, but yeah, it doesn't seem very natural to me actually.
All right. I mean, it's certainly one to watch and a clear sign that markets can have an interesting impact, specifically when we're talking about those smaller altcoins out there without the sort of liquidity security that some of the big ones have. But now moving to a coin that does ostensibly have considerably more liquidity and considerably more security, and has seen some interesting developments recently. The Ethereum network just released their Istanbul hard fork going back on Saturday. It came live. What can we see in the wake of that? Has it shifted ETH? Have we seen some changes in the network? And has it had the impact that the Ethereum Foundation was hoping for?
So yeah, I think Ethereum did really well over on Saturday, 7 December. They had a hard fork, the Istanbul hard fork. This is one of the first of the, not first, one of the many hard forks that will come in place for Ethereum that will take place as Ethereum moves from proof of work to proof of stake in Ethereum 2.0. One of the biggest changes that Istanbul brings about is it aims to make layer 2 solutions compatible on like Snarks and Starks on Ethereum. But more importantly, it enables Ethereum and Zcash to interoperate with this hard fork. I think that the hard fork was very successful. All the major exchanges started supporting the Ethereum hard fork, and it was very well. I think something interesting to take note of this Ethereum hard fork is I think the community as a whole, the Ethereum community as a whole, has been very united on the plan to move forward with all the hard forks towards Ethereum 2.0. Contrast this with Bitcoin, where a couple of years ago, a lot of people had very intense infighting. And this resulted in the ultimate split between Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. So the Ethereum Foundation, I think, did a relatively good job. I think perhaps it is the cult of the leader. There's Vitalik Buterin, whereas for Bitcoin, there wasn't any major leader. Satoshi is anonymous. And I think it's very interesting that the whole Ethereum community is very committed and united in this front. But that being said, I guess it's still a bit early to say if the community will remain united or if you eventually split at some point when the time comes to move from proof of work to proof of stake. So yeah, so far everything looks really good. Not much price action. I guess everything has been priced in. So yeah.
I mean, it is an interesting one. Just focusing in there for a second on the price action element. This is a hard fork. They did ostensibly upgrade the network as a whole, although obviously, as the Ethereum Foundation states, simply one step among many on the way to the Ethereum 2.0 model. But were you surprised that there wasn't more action when it came to pricing, either in the lead up to or in the wake of the hard fork?
It's a bit hard to say, but generally not much action at this point in time. Perhaps something next year, and we'll see. But it's been a pretty slow, quiet market, I would say, where Bitcoin, Ethereum, many other coins have been trading between a small price band without much volatility. Of course, the exceptions are like things like Matic, where with low liquidity, things are being manipulated around.
Is one certainly to watch. And another coin that is worth keeping your eyes on at the moment, Tezos, which has seen 100% gains over the last 6 weeks. Binance is now offering staking with 0 fees come last Tuesday. It's an interesting coin, again, another one that's bucked the trend, which has seen a general stagnation or even a downward trend, a bit of a bearish trend among most of the major coins. Tezos is standing apart, at least in the short term. What do you make of all this?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting that Binance is offering staking with 0 fee for Tezos. And I think this is a very strategic long-term move from Binance. So Binance is not thinking short-term. If they're thinking short-term, they would find a way to make revenue from all these staking users. But what they're thinking about is trying to entrench users into the Binance ecosystem further. So what happens is, if you're going to stake Tezos, you might want to stake it with Binance because as a reward, if you're purely a profit maximizing user, you get a lot more Tezos on Binance compared to the other exchanges or any other bakers out there. So Coinbase, for example, charges 25% staking fees, and Gate.io, another exchange that offers staking rewards for its users, charges 33%. So just by using Binance, you get 25%, you get more Tezos out of the staking. So I think this is a very interesting move. Some people are saying if this is actually good for the ecosystem, because if all the exchanges start doing this, eventually all the bakers and all the validators for not just Tezos but all the other staking coins would be by exchanges. I guess that's sort of inevitable that exchanges, as it becomes more competitive, we need to start offering more services to its users, and we would expect the exchanges to be some of the biggest stakers in the space. I guess Another big trend that you can take a look is you can actually think of exchanges more of banks of the future. So essentially what we're seeing is exchanges are starting to look more and more like banks, crypto banks. So banks offer interest-bearing accounts and staking rewards are sort of an interest-bearing accounts. And instead of doing everything by yourself, you basically make use of an exchange and they reward you for storing them, the coins with them.
Certainly. Do you think this will help make the market that much more competitive when it comes to staking, or do you think Binance is going to be able to run away with it and take control of the staking market by offering this?
Yeah. So I think it's very interesting that Binance has started offering zero-fee staking, and I guess it's just a matter of time before the other exchanges start seeing the benefits that they can get, not just from the marketing opportunity, but from entrenching the users into the exchange ecosystem by offering zero fee. So if I have all my Teslas on Binance, I will most likely just trade Binance against Bitcoin or any other currencies just on Binance. Why would I want to transfer my Binance to another exchange to trade when everything is on Binance already? So I would say that staking is probably a race to zero, and we will start seeing more exchanges doing this, staking with zero fees. And I would say that independent staking as a service companies will find it hard to compete with all these exchanges in this market.
Yeah, certainly it will become a much tighter, more competitive market. We'll have to see how that does play out into the future. But in the meantime, Bobby Ong, co-founder at Coingecko, I want to thank you so much for helping break down these interesting and key topics with us today. Important to see how the market is developing and take a look at the data that abounds. In the meantime, stay with us at blocktv.com for all the latest news and information. I'm Asher Westrop Evans. Thanks for watching.
For more news and updates, follow us on Twitter.